At this point, we understand how great of a series Mario has become on home consoles. He had essentially become the mascot not just for Nintendo, but also home gaming in general. Around the late 80s though, a new way to play was popularized, and that was portable gaming. With the new frontier available, Mario was ready to conquer it. This was done with the Mario Land games, Super Mario Land and Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins. Naturally, being that they were on portable hardware, these games are a bit less discussed than their console counterparts. What will be fun to see though is how these technological fossils could hold up in modern times, and if there's any value in replaying these games nowadays. Now, there have been portable games in the past. The first portable games were released in the mid-70s with Mattel's Auto Race, and in 1979, Milton Bradley would release the Microvision, the first portable console with interchangeable games. Nintendo themselves also had made portable games with their relatively popular Game & Watch line of games. However, nothing truly became a sensation until the Game Boy was released in 1989. This was where most people would assume handheld gaming was born, and when there's a Nintendo console, a Mario game would soon be releasing for it. This game wasn't developed by our usual crew at Nintendo R&D 4. No, this time R&D 1 was in charge of development, and the game would be produced by Gunpei Yokoi, a Nintendo lifer who also helped create the Game Boy alongside Satoru Okada, who was also this game's director. Mario Land 1 was initially going to be the pack-in title for the Game Boy, which, makes sense. Nintendo bundled the original Super Mario Bros. With the NES, and that was extremely successful. However, after some convincing from Hank Rogers, that honor would instead go to Tetris. It's a long, very convoluted story, so I suggest that you go watch the Gaming Historian's video on the history of Tetris, because it's an incredibly fascinating piece of history, and I can't even begin to explain all of the little intricacies involved in it, so I'd say go watch that video if you want the full story about that. While it wasn't the pack-in title, Super Mario Land still came out in the Game Boy's launch window, with it being released in August of 1989, 1 month after the Game Boy's launch. God, look at this antique. This definitely looks like an early release Game Boy game. I know, this was 1989 and handheld gaming was still fairly new, but this looks pretty dated even just looking at the Game Boy's library in general. I mean, Mario's, 4 pixels tall? Goombas in this game are about half the size of that. I can only imagine how tough it was back then trying to play this game on an original Game Boy screen. I played this for the first time on a Game Boy Advance SP with a backlight, and even still, it was pretty tough to see certain parts of the game. This falling ceiling gag got me a bunch of times when I played this on my Game Boy. I will say though, playing it on a Game Boy screen does give it a little bit of charm. When you look at the game on an enlarged computer monitor, the charm is kinda lost from the higher fidelity screen. That's not to say it isn't there though. This game certainly has a different look to it. The areas you travel in are based on different parts of the world, that being Egypt, Easter Island, China, and the ocean. That last one isn't very original. Maybe they forgot to name it Atlantis in development or something, I don't know. Really, the only way you know you're in these different areas are like seeing pyramids or Moai statues in the background. Again, it's the original Game Boy, it's trying its best. These areas also contain some weird-ass enemies. It's a lot stranger than Mario 2's enemies if I had to compare it to something in this era. Sure, you have some returning enemies like Goombas, Koopas, and Bullet Bills, but most of the time, you got original designs and they certainly are interesting. The best way I could describe it is that a sentient Moai with wings is somehow not the weirdest enemy in this game. Even returning enemies are different. Technically, these guys here aren't Goombas, they're actually Goombos. These aren't Bullet Bills, they're actually Bullet Biffs. What's the difference? Couldn't tell you, but they're technically different from their Mushroom Kingdom counterparts. The Koopas, though, do have a big difference. These guys fucking explode after a few seconds when you stomp on them. I'm not sure why, perhaps the Sarasaland species is easily combustible. We aren't just exploring this land by ground, though. A couple stages feature you piloting a plane or submarine in these 2D space shooter-esque stages. These are super surreal to see in a Mario game. I mean, they're fun. I like 2D space shooters, to compare it again to something similar of that era, I really like Gradius. And the music in these levels are pretty good too, but I still don't think these really belong in a Mario game. I'm pretty sure Nintendo agrees with me because we haven't really seen anything like this in the Mario series again to my knowledge. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first Mario game that rewards you with hitting the top of an exit. You get a quick mini-game to play to try and either score a power-up or extra lives. The power-ups are limited to just the mushroom, fire flower, and star. Oh, excuse me, I meant the super flower actually. I guess this is another native Sarasaland life form. It's functionally the same thing as the fire flower, although you shoot out super balls, yes, that's actually their name, look it up, and they can grab coins for you. Also, why is the star theme the can-can? Naturally, being that this game is on the OG Game Boy, there's probably going to be some jank. Man, let me tell you, if you thought the original Super Mario Bros. Felt off, this is a different creature. Now, it's not a type of jank where it's unplayable, it's just weird. In this game, momentum is all over the place. Sometimes you feel like Mario's jumping with 100 pounds of rocks in his overalls, other times he's accelerating at Mario 2 speeds and flying all over the place. What's also nice is having your momentum completely gimped just by hitting a ceiling of a level. That's always great. Ledges can merely be suggestions at times. You'll be playing through a level and suddenly Mario will careen like an anchor into whatever pit he just dropped into. You can just stand next to these bullet bill launchers like it's nothing. Yeah, technically my hitbox isn't touching of the bullet, but it sure as hell looks like it. The mood whiplash of going from a boss fight to the end of a minigame is also really funny. Like, I'm supposed to feel really deceived after finding out I didn't save Daisy, and the game instantly goes, "Hey, you wanna gamble?" I mean, yeah, I do, but like, give me a few minutes first. Goddamn, I have some things to process. There's a lot of funky shit in this game, a product of its time, that's for sure. Oh, you know what? I should probably also go over the plot of this game real quick. This time, Mario's adventure is not in the Mushroom Kingdom, but the aforementioned Sarasaland. Being that we aren't in the Mushroom Kingdom, that means we are saving a different monarch. This time, it's Princess Daisy in her first appearance in the series. The big bad of the way this time isn't Bowser, but an alien named Tatanga. It's up to you to go through 4 worlds of this game to save Sarasaland alongside Daisy as well. It's pretty much a typical Mario storyline, just swap in Daisy for Peach, Sarasaland for the Mushroom Kingdom, and Tatanga for Bowser. Unlike other Mario games though, this mission won't take you too long to complete. 4 worlds this time instead of the usual 8, and 3 stages per world instead of 4. Yes, there's only 12 total stages in the entire game. I'm not that surprised. Again, handheld games, they're supposed to be shorter than your console counterparts. However, this is a bit too short. I filmed all of my footage for this game in just under half a goddamn hour. This game was so short. Not only that, the game is fairly easy. There weren't really any times where I was struggling at certain sections of the levels. It was a pretty comfortable adventure all the way through. Now, just because a game is really short, that doesn't mean it can't be fun, and Super Mario Land is still pretty fun. To be fair, it's hard to mess up the overall style of a Mario game in my opinion, but even in its ancient state, it's still fun to plow through in an afternoon. Plus, there's also a hard mode that you can play after finishing the game if you're really craving more Mario Land. If you are craving more Mario Land though, I suggest instead of replaying this game, you actually play its direct sequel, Mario Land 2. This was released in 1992, and it would end up being the last 2D Mario platformer until New Super Mario Bros. In 2006, a near 14-year gap in between. You'd never think there would be a drought of any type of Mario game, let alone the genre that made him famous. Especially as someone who grew up getting New Super Mario Bros. Games constantly my entire life, I couldn't imagine waiting that long for a 2D Mario game to come out. This game was also developed by Nintendo R&D 1, and some members from the Mario Land 1 dev team were also involved here. What they created ended up being the largest Game Boy Mario game released. That's not really saying much considering that there's only like 2 Mario games on the Game Boy, and they're all very simple. Mario Land 2 was 8 times the size of Mario Land 1 at a whopping 4 megabytes. Yeah, I know, a whole lot of space there. I don't think that actually shows how large Mario Land 2 is. I think it more shows how small of a game Mario Land 1 actually was. With all that space, there would hopefully be a lot more content, right? Well, Mario Land 2 has 32 levels, almost 3 times as many as the first game, so we're already doing better there. We also get another antagonist that has become a Mario staple with his rival, Wario. Even though we'll see more parts of his character developed in future games, like his love of garlic or his biblical levels of greed, he's a great antithesis to Mario in this game. Actually, going back to the garlic bit though, the man behind Wario, Hiroji Kiyotake, actually says that Wario's favorite food is crepes. I don't know where the love of garlic developed from after this. That seems like kind of a jump, but hey, fun bit of trivia. Wario likes crepes, I guess. I think it's fairly well known also that Wario's name comes from the Japanese word for bad, so I'm not even going to really mention that too much. Another part of his creation, though, that was interesting was that Wario was kind of used as an outlet for how Nintendo R&D 1 felt creating a Mario game. They weren't really big fans of it, so all the unpleasantness you see in Wario's character is kind of funneled from that general feeling from the development crew. The plot is fairly simple. While Mario was out cheating on his wife in Sarasaland, Wario snuck onto Mario Land and took over his castle. Yes, Mario does have his own castle and private island. Not sure where he got those from, hopefully not from Peach though. I can only imagine the tax rates in the Mushroom Kingdom if that were the case. Anyway, Mario's goal is simple, just get his land back and kick Wario out of said land. The first thing you probably notice is how much better this game looks. This feels like a handheld Mario game. You can see that Mario's sprite is more similar to the one he had in Super Mario World, as that was the most recent game at the time it was released. The enemies from previous games look a lot more like their actual designs instead of just a bunch of pixels that suggested I was looking at a Goomba. While generally this game looks like a Mario game, it still does have its weird moments like in the last game. In fact, it might even be stranger. The worlds you travel through don't really have any traditional themes. You get unique areas like Macro Zone, which shrinks you in size and has you fight ants. Pumpkin Zone has a bunch of horror elements like witches and ghosts. Space Zone puts you into low gravity, where you basically can just fly through all the stages. Oh hey, Tataga's the boss for this area. I kind of forgot about that. I thought he only appeared in the first Mario Land, but yeah, he's here too. To highlight some more of the out-there elements of the game, you'll see stuff like hippos that blow snot bubbles that you could float around in. Certain floors made out of just straight-up Lego bricks. Dracula shows up in a level for shits and giggles. You enter one of the worlds by being eaten by a turtle. There is some strange shit, but it gives the game its own feel. Again, how many times can you say that you entered a mechanized suit of yourself, and one of the levels is literally in its balls? I mean, come on, how else can this be perceived? The whole level is filled with balls as enemies, like, come on. Something else that's different is that there's a casino where you can bet your coins to try and get power-ups or extra lives. There's only one new power-up in the game, and that's the carrot, one of the most broken power-ups in the whole series. The gimmick with it is that if you tap the A button, Mario will briefly hover in the air. It's basic, sure, but if you can really mash the A button, you can essentially fly over a good number of stages. Seriously, get some momentum behind a jump and watch the level basically finish itself. It's fun to use, and I wish it came back in future games, but I do understand why it hasn't been revived like the Tanuki suit. I'm not really sure how they'd rework it to not make it overpowered, you know what I mean? I said before that one of my biggest issues with Mario Land 1 is how wonky the game's physics are. Good news is that this controls a hell of a lot better. Mario does have one new move, and that's the spin here by pressing down on the D-pad in midair. Once again, this game is taking inspiration from Mario World because that game also had a spin jump like this. While the control is definitely better, there are still some issues. There were a few times where I slipped off the edge of a platform, but overall, it doesn't feel like I'm fighting the game just to jump from platform to platform. The music is pretty good as well, but I don't find it as memorable as the first game's soundtrack. Sure, the main theme is really good, but everything else kind of just lacks that staying power like the first game. That's not to say it's bad, mind you, just not as memorable. Alright, you've collected all 6 golden coins, it's time to take back our castle, and oh boy, you're gonna be in it for a tough one. Wario's Castle might be one of the hardest levels in 2D Mario history, no joke. Where do I begin? Okay, first, it's long. Really fucking long. Most levels in this game aren't too lengthy, not even the boss levels really. This though, it's a gauntlet of all different types of obstacles. Piranha plants that shoot fire, platforms that disappear after standing on them, jumping on small moving platforms over lava, ceiling traps that will crush you if you aren't careful, Wario's balls. Okay, what is the deal with this game and balls? And to top it all off, the actual fight with Wario is a 3-phase fight where he uses your own power-ups against you. There is so much to deal with in this one level, and you wanna know what the worst part is? No checkpoints. Yep, if you fuck up on the last phase of the final boss, too bad for you. You're redoing all that shit again. Plus, if you get a game over, all the golden coins are returned to their zones, meaning you have to fight all the other bosses in the game again, just to get another shot at beating this fat bastard. I remember for years I was stuck on this final level, always coming up short on it, always having to go get the 6 golden coins back just to die and have to repeat the process over and over and over again. I'll tell you this though, once you do beat Wario and kick him out of your castle, it feels damn good. It's really satisfying. I gotta say, it was quite the fun experience playing both these games back to back. Even though so much from both games are outdated and outclassed by future entries, there's something charming about revisiting Mario's early handheld days. Even through all their faults, they are more than worthy to be remembered as Game Boy classics. The nice thing about these as well is that they're extremely accessible, so experiencing these games won't be too hard to do. Whether you want to get it on the Switch Online store or if you want to get the cartridges, they're dirt cheap. At this point though, I think I'm ready to finally move on to the final game in this little classic 2D Mario retrospective, so next time, I'll be revisiting one of my favorite games of all time, Super Mario World.